of the Coastal Resources Management Council. Today is Tuesday, January 24, 2023. Let the record reflect the subcommittee members that are in attendance. First matter on the agenda is update and status of the subcommittee's review of sites under investigation as potential rights of way to the tidal waters of the state. Spring Avenue Extension, Westerly, Buttonwoods, and Warwick.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
in light of the fact that we have Mr. Richard Langseth here with us for the Buttonwoods matter, would it be possible for the committee to take the agenda items out of order? Buttonwoods first, Weekapaug second.
Yes, not a problem.
Further, since Mr. Langseth traveled up here, would it be okay if he just gave a short presentation on his matter?
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Richard Langseth of Budlong Farm Road in Warwick, and I have a petition before you, as you all know. And it turns out that the Weekapaug matter is.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Langseth, let me swear you in.
Oh, sure,
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
And for the record, could you state your name and spell it for the record?
Oh, sure. Richard Langseth, Lang, S as in Sam, ETH. But Budlong Farm, Warwick, Rhode Island. And I have a petition before the subcommittee. And the progress at Weekapaug is going quite well. They have recommendations from the town council in Westerly and Charleston. So it appears to be right. And I think it would be best to have that one go first. In the meantime, I am continuing to work with the city council in Warwick and expect to get some kind of recommendation out of them, but it's not ripe yet.
If I may, just to follow up on what Mr. Langseth said, he's been kind enough to send quite a bit of information from the land evidence records of the city of Warwick and other matters. This is something that goes back many years. There's some interesting legal issues that are involved with this. The Buttonwoods Association, or whatever the organization is called, has also sent some things in. I agree with him. There's some matters that need to be addressed locally first. And I think that's why he's being kind enough to say, although we've been at this for several years, that perhaps the Weekapaug matter should be first on CRMC's agenda. Then this matter can be taken up when those issues are resolved.
Well, yeah, of course, those issues may not be resolved for many years, but let them go first. And if they end up in a long thing, then I could jump in while that's still going on.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Langseth's been very helpful on the matter.
thank you. Any questions of Mr. Langsford from subcommittee members?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else present on that particular matter, the Buttonwoods matter?
That was just the status of it, and we'll just continue on with it, but just wanted to let you know where that was, because it has been in the hopper for several years now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next one would be the Spring Avenue Extension, Westerly. Any parties present on that particular matter?
I'm here as a representing myself, Michael Rubin. I don't know if there's anybody from the fire district that's present.
All right, what's our intent on that?
Well, actually, Mr. Rubin has a request in. I would ask that he just articulate that if he wouldn't mind coming up and discussing his request for a subpoena. I'd like to address that on a legal matter. I noticed he has some documentary, or at least he has a board with him.
I do have some show and tell. I don't know that that's necessary for the presentation.
The Buttonwoods Beach Association guy just showed up.
Okay.
Want to refer to that, Mr. DeSisto?
You want me to just give a recap?
I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Sir, we just discussed Buttonwoods. We took it out of order and took it first. We heard briefly from Mr. Langseth. If you would like to say anything, that's fine. You could come up here and discuss, but basically what we talked about was that we've gotten in quite a bit of information. It's not ready to be addressed by the council at this time. We're going to take the Weekapaug Spring Avenue extension right of way up before that. And once that matter has been addressed, we can take up the Buttonwoods matter. Not tonight, but we're talking about in the March of time.
Okay, so if you're not gonna discuss it, then there's no reason for you to be here then?
Well, I hate to have you drive up from Warwick and drive back again, but no.
No, that's okay, I respect your time, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you. Should I stand here? Is this good enough or?
Mike, why don't you get over where the microphone is?
Okay, is that a mic right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm Michael Rubin. I'm an attorney. I'm just representing myself in this matter. Obviously, I work closely with a number of Westerly citizens in trying to secure the opening of Spring Avenue. This is what we believe to be a platted right of way to the shore. There's a lot been said about Spring Avenue, some of it in the media, some of it at town council meetings, and some of it in submissions to the CRMC, in particular to the subcommittee. One of the things that has been said by the opposition, which is essentially the Weekapaug Fire District, is that there is an 1884 plat that helps them, and that disproves our case. The trouble is, as far as I can tell, and I don't think anybody is here from the fire district, as far as I can tell, but as far as I can tell, nobody's ever seen this plat. And so what we're really dealing with is somebody's speculation and conjecture as to what might be on this 1884 plat. But it's one thing for me to reach that conclusion. It's another thing to establish it on the record before this body, a quasi-judicial body, whose determinations are eventually going to be reviewed by the courts. So we need to nail that down. Have they seen it? Do they have it? And that's why I felt that a preliminary subpoena should issue to the person who's the head of the fire district. It's a person they call the moderator. And the moderator has made some statements that frankly, I consider, in my opinion, to be immoderate, to the effect that this 1884 plat proves their case, but they've never produced it. And they've never definitively said whether they have it or not, and whether they've seen it or not. So let's get to the bottom. Now, there has been, it came to my attention just as I filed my letter, which is essentially a motion, Mr. Chairman, for a subpoena. There was an exchange of an Apple request to the fire district. And the secretary of the fire district said that the fire district doesn't have it. Does that mean that the moderator, Mr. Robert McCann, doesn't have it? Does that mean their attorneys don't have it? Does that mean they don't know where it is? I think that, you know, given the dignity of this forum as a quasi-judicial tribunal, we really need to nail that down. So I would like that a subpoena issue. I would leave the details to Mr. DeSisto, whether, you know, the statute gives you subpoena power. It doesn't say exactly what form the testimony would be taken, and I would assume that a deposition in lieu of live testimony where interested attorneys could come and reasonably question the witness would be the suitable forum. I leave that up to Mr. DeSisto. I didn't try to specify the detail.
Okay, can I just follow up on this because you got this request? The first thing is Mike, as I read section 46-23-9, that the subpoena power is with the council, not with the subcommittee. That's the first thing.
Right.
Second thing is my question is this 1884 plat that you've referenced, was it recorded?
No, well, they say it was never recorded. And so obviously, if it was recorded, that would be the centerpiece of my request. I'm not asking this committee to do a title search. And by the way, I'm aware the statute gives the full council the subpoena power. I imagine that just as this body recommends ultimate decision to the full council, this subcommittee might recommend a decision for the full council. And even if I'm wrong, my effort's not wasted because the chair is also the chair of the full council. So no, the other side, so to speak, the Weak Pot Fire District says, quote, it was never recorded. And I have a footnote to that effect in my submission where I quote their brief saying it was never recorded. So according to them, it was never recorded. I'm not in a position to say that it was never recorded. There's speculations that maybe it was recorded and now it's going missing. It cannot be found in the land records. Nobody has looked for it, has ever been able to find it in the land records. Myself, folks like Mr. Palazzolo, Mr. Weber, who've been intimately involved in this case, Mr. Solovyetzik, who had looked at the case at this matter on behalf of the town of Westerly about going on 20 years ago, about 15 years ago now. He doesn't even make mention of it, so apparently he couldn't find it. So nobody's been able to find it.
So from a title law standpoint, if it's not a recorded plat, what effect would it have anyway? I don't even think it could be put into the record if it's not recorded in the land evidence records.
Well, they, of course, I don't, that's a good question for them. They chose not to show up here tonight, but they're relying on it. And so I got to be prepared. So they try to reconstruct it. Now, personally, my opinion is that their reconstruction is wrong. And I think that I have a much better reconstruction of it than their reconstruction of it. But nonetheless, they rely upon it. They purport to reconstruct it based on other documents that surround it. So in other words, you do have some deeds that reference this plat, and they read something into those deeds that I don't think is there. And I'm trying to keep your argument, tracked as closely as I can to the question here, but I will say that they say that the deeds that reference that plat show that that plat shows that all the rights of way are private. What the deeds say is that some of the rights of way are private. And, so I think that, my reconstruction is much better than theirs. Plus, I based my reconstruction on a plat that was recorded very close in time, 1886, that is recorded and that shows Spring Avenue as not private. Plus, if you look at the subsequent deeds in the chain of title, the original deeds out that do refer to the 1884 plat, of which there are a handful, if you follow those chains of title down towards the current day, and through the grantor and grantee indexes, obviously, what you find is that in the subsequent decades, conveyancers substituted a reference to the 1886 plat, which we do have, for the 1884 plat, which they don't have. But be that as it may, I've got to meet whatever their arguments are. And that's one of the reasons for the subpoena. Plus, I think the moderator being an important person in the fire district, there's been references to other title opinions being out there that would not be attorney-client. I don't believe if they were, given to a title company or to a bank. I think there's some other lines of inquiry. And I think at the end of my letter, I do indicate that the questioning would be plenary within the bounds, of course, the relevancy of this case.
Just a quick question. This is for the edification of the board. Mike, how many legal memoranda have you filed with the council on this matter?
I have filed two formal or somewhat, there were letter briefs addressed to you, Mr. DeSisto. But I did also file some supplemental material in terms of the actual statutes that chartered the fire district, and also moreover the plats. And I put together a compendium of the 8 plats that are recorded, that are subdivision plats that are in the land records. The other side is talking about the one that's not in the land records. I'm talking about the ones that are in the land records. And I have a compendium in there of the 8 plats. And then there was a couple of like little corrective letters and things like that.
Okay, and how many memos did the Weekapaug? They filed, is it 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think they have filed 1, 2. I think they have filed 3, because they had filed 1 before I even became involved, which is quite lengthy. It's about 160 pages in total. It's actually 2 parts because it has like a small addendum to it. And then they filed a reply to what my initial filing, and then shortly after my reply, they filed like a certify.
Okay,
So they filed 3 and I filed 2, but there's a bunch of miscellaneous other documents that are out there.
that's correct. And of course, the Attorney General
Right.
has been involved too. And
Right.
Can you estimate, just so the board knows, estimate, this is volunteer work for you. How many hours have you put into this?
You should ask my wife. She's the one who complains about it.
Okay,
But a lot. I would say 100. So it's a labor of love. But
okay.
and I do have to show and tell. I don't want to prejudice the board. The other side's not here. The fire district chose not to be here, I suppose. If I could just, in a very neutral way, just display the plats that we're talking about.
Actually, based on the fact that you're the only one here, this is set down on the agenda for
Right.
open meetings purposes.
Right.
This isn't really a time to make the argument.
Right.
It's really a time so that the board, the subcommittee can get a status report. I wanted you to say what you said
Right.
so that the board could get, the subcommittee could get a little flavor of how much time has been spent on this. So does anybody have any questions for Mike? Of course, he's retired from the Department of Attorney General. He spent his career on these issues. But I'd like to get on with my report on this, if that's okay.
Any questions?
Can I just ask one
Yes.
quick question? So you've seen other evidence of this 1884 plat in written documents or?
Well, yeah, there's references to it. And what happens in these cases is you have a plat that's recorded, and then there are deeds out. The grantor who records the plat or causes the plat to be made and recorded, then as part of the subdivision process, then he deeds out to certain purchasers who are purchasing individual lots. And so, and I don't have the exact number at my fingertips, but you have about half a dozen deeds out between 1884 and 1886. And those reference that 1884 plat. They don't say it was recorded, they say it will be recorded. Apparently, it never was recorded, or maybe it never came into existence because the 1880, by the time they got around to actually making the plat, they had that 1886 plat and they recorded that one. But yes, there are deeds that reference it, and they, being the Weekapaug Fire District, are making certain inferences which are in their papers based on the surrounding deeds. I happen to disagree with those inferences, but they're making them. I think a subpoena is warranted. And I think it should be, Mr. Chairman, if I can address you both as chair of this body and the full council, should be prior to the actual hearings, because this is like a threshold preliminary foundational matter.
Well, Mike, if I can make a suggestion.
Yep.
Rather than referring to Mr. Coy as the double chair. Perhaps if you referred to him as sofa in that capacity, it'd be a little bit better.
That's what,
Sofa.
so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, two chairs.
Thank you. I'm going to address, Mike, I'm going to address your request because it was a pending request. And then I'd like to give an update from staff, the staff's perspective and my own perspective on where the matter stands and how it should proceed from here. Yes, sir.
I want to speak on the matter.
Right, I think it's fine. I think it's fine, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
come on up.
I mean, it's a more, just something that's on the agenda, but update.
It's an update, but I think it's okay if we hear from him.
Yep.
Sir, could you state your name for the record?
Anthony Michael Palazzolo Jr. I'm residing in North Stonington, Connecticut. I am licensed to practice law in California and in Connecticut. I'm not licensed in Rhode Island. I'm here merely as a would-be user of Spring Avenue. I have no clients with an interest in this matter. I don't practice Rhode Island law. Anything I say here should not be construed otherwise.
Understood, Mr. Palazzolo, but as I said to Mr. Rubin, this is not, if you have a question about procedure, that's fine. I'm going to give a status update, but we're not taking testimony now.
I would like to speak directly to matters that Mr. Rubin just spoke on.
Okay, if you stray though, I'm going to stop you, okay? Because I don't want it to be that, other interested parties say you gave Mr. Palazzolo a chance, but you didn't give us a chance. And it's not on the agenda for that. It was really on for a status update. I want to hear from Mr. Rubin because he made a specific request for a subpoena, which I'll address. That goes to the status of the matter. Okay,
That's fine.
okay,
Yes, that's all I wanted to do.
okay.
So first of all, colleague of mine, Jim Tarbox, submitted 2 sets of APRA requests to the Wheatport Fire District regarding the April 1, 1884 plat map that's being discussed. Roughly 20 separate APRA requests. I provided those to Mike Rubin before he finalized his letter and sent it to you. I believe there's maybe a footnote in Mike Rubin's letter regarding those APRA requests. And I'd like to offer to provide those APRA requests to the council so you can see the substance of the matter. Now,
Send them to me, please.
I'll be happy to. Okay. I think Mr. Tarbox did a fine job of trying to get to the heart of the matter and approaching it from many different directions. He requested that the fire district provide any 1884 maps within their possession, custody, or control. Any maps with the specific title of that April 1, 1884 map within their possession, custody, and control. Any maps from 1884 within their possession, custody, and control. Any of those types of maps that were in the possession, custody, and control of Thomas Liguori, one of their lawyers. Any maps within the possession, custody, and control of Denman Sherman, who is another one of their lawyers. Any of these maps within the possession, custody, and control of their law firms. He just asked the same question 20 different times in 20 different ways to try to reduce the possibility that the fire district might rely on a technicality in denying their possession of them. They flatly denied all of these requests. Be happy to provide those to you. Now, the one thing that may be of interest in particular that came out of these requests is that Mr. Tarbox asked for invoices from their attorneys related to the 1884 map. And he was provided with invoices that roughly totaled something like $80,000 or $100,000. It seems interesting to me that they had substantial discussions and work with their attorneys that are at least relevant to the April 1, 1884 map, but nonetheless still claim that neither they nor their attorneys have it. Of course, it's all, in addition to the fact that, as Michael Rubin pointed out, they keep discussing it. So I actually support Mr. Rubin's request, but I'd like to provide the substantive information we've collected to date what I see as the benefit of his request is that you may be able to subpoena an individual and ask him for, whatever you like in person. But there is substantial APRA requests and responses where they deny it all. Now, you asked the question of whether this 1884 map was ever recorded. And I'd like to clarify Michael Rubin's answer. He's right that the fire district has taken the position that it was never recorded. And in their briefing, they point to what they claim was an affidavit from the town clerk in Westerly. But when you look at those exhibits, what you find is just blank affidavit forms. Nobody signed anything. The clerk didn't sign anything. There are statements in the blank form, but there's no attestation to it. And incidentally, I filed one document with the CRMC regarding this matter, roughly, I think, 70 pages with exhibits, etc. And I discussed what I perceive to be the inadequacy of their claim for why they can prove that it was never recorded. In the same section of my briefing, I do point to 3 separate recorded deeds that in fact say that it was recorded. Now, Michael Rubin is right that you can point to other deeds at the relevant time, which specifically say that the map was either recorded or to be recorded, and that is obviously ambiguous. In my briefing, I point to 3 specific deeds that simply say that deed was recorded. So those are the facts that as I can recall them, and they are set forth in briefing, in detail in my briefing. So you can refer to that if you have any other additional questions on it. In my briefing, I did actually ask the CRM to demand this 1884 map of fire district as well. So that's considered Mr. Rubin's request. I guess that's all I can think of at the moment with respect to his testimony. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer it.
Any questions?
Just one quick question.
Yes, Ron.
Did they respond and say that the APRA request was denied because it wasn't a public record, or did they say that platform doesn't exist?
They basically said they don't have it. Can't give you something we don't have.
So the proper term would have been that they don't have any documents in their possession responsive to the request. Mr. Palazzolo, I don't think I got your APRA requests or the answers. I did get your brief. Can you forward that to me?
All right, let me clarify. Okay, these particular APRA requests were not from me. They were from a colleague, Jim Tarbox. And I have copies of that. I'd be happy to provide that to you. And it's true, I have not provided them to you yet.
That's okay. And the answers that you got?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Well, one final thing. At least 1,000 hours. Thank you for your time.
Well, we'll have to discuss that when my contract comes up. That's why I want the responses too. I'd like to address that and also give the status of the Weekapaug matter.
Sure.
On this. And what you heard from Mike and what you heard from Mr. Palazzolo is correct. I know they spent quite a bit of time on this. And, the fire district has probably spent about the same amount of time, I think, on this also. So I have all of the briefs in. There's just some other issues that, and by the way, that's over and above what we've done. And as you know, when I say we, Mark and I have spent a lot of time on this, and we even got some help from the law fellows at the Roger Williams Law School. So there's been a lot of legal attention to this issue. There are some questions that I have on this, which I think are going to be answered fairly soon. Once that's done, what I'd like to do is prepare my own memorandum for you, which will summarize the various points that Mike has given tonight on it and what he's put in his memoranda. and what Mr. Palazzolo has in his memoranda. And also what you have from the fire district as well as the town of Westerly. And I'm going to try and condense that as best I can. There's a lot of information here. And as you can see, we're discussing matters that took place in the 19th century, going through the 20th century up until now. So I think you're all going to need that. And then at that point, you can go forward and hold your hearings on this a particular right of way down in Westerly, so the process can go forward. And you can hear not only from the lawyers, but you can also hear from the residents down there for their positions on this thing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, as you know, we have received a communication from the Department of Attorney General. And that department has put their time in, and they've done their research independent from the research that the agency has done and the interested parties have done too. Now you have, we have a letter from the Attorney General himself summarizing their conclusions too. So I do think there'll be some participation from the Attorney General on behalf of the people of the state of Rhode Island. So that's what we're looking at here. This is not like other rights of way that you've seen that we've had where there's been pretty much unanimity on it. This will be, I think, the first one where there's going to be a contested. It'll be contested on this. And there's, well, let's see now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. How many lawyers on this one, Mike? 5 or 6?
Yeah, well, the fire district has 3 lawyers. And then, you know, there's on our side, we have myself, we have the Attorney General's office. And Save the Bay, by the way, has weighed in for what it's worth, and they obviously are with attention by counsel.
Yes. So, you know, you're going to get some legal presentations on this one. And it's very fact intensive. So that's where it stands. As we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, this will be the first one that's that we will take up, and I hope to do it sooner rather than later. Because I do think that there's other rights of way that you had wanted to discuss tonight. Jeff, is that correct?
There are still some in the hopper. Yes, there are. But as you've mentioned, this one has demanded a lot of our time and attention. So it should be at the top of the list.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later would be any estimate or just that?
I talked about this with Jeff. And he doesn't want me to make any promises that can't be kept. But I was thinking that this would be done in the first half. We would start this in the first half of the year. I don't think this is going to be one hearing. I think you're going to have more than one hearing down in Westerly that you're going to have to deliberate on. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be somewhat similar to the RASO application for subcommittees. We're going to take, that's how much interest you're going to see on this. That's how much testimony you're going to have to take. And then, you know, we're going to have to, you know, sort through the legal issues on this too, because there are legal issues. I think Mike agrees with me on that. Yeah, I heard that.
Is the AG reviewing the APRA requests and the responses also, or just the other legal issues?
I just from what Mr. Palazzolo said, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, he's here. I don't think so. I think what happened is the request was made from Mr. Tarbox, and then there was timely responses, so that no complaint was filed with the Department of Attorney General. Okay.
Thanks.
But I don't think they've seen the information.
I don't mean to interject, but if I just may briefly, but still mean to interrupt, and that is that just because the fire district says they don't have it, doesn't mean that they haven't seen it or don't know where it is.
Well, and if I can address, by the way, you know, of course, we started off with addressing the subpoena, and I haven't done that. Before we get to the issuance of a subpoena, I would like to see if I can obtain the 1884 plat. Or if at least I can narrow things down so that if a subpoena is issued, we know exactly what's gonna happen, because my reading of the statute is that you're gonna have to have a deposition. It's not the subpoenas ducus tecum, which is, bring the documents. I think what you're gonna have to do is actually bring somebody in and depose them ahead of time. I do agree that it's a predicate issue that needs to be addressed before you have any hearings on this, so that you know what it is. However, I'm gonna say this. If that plat cannot be obtained in a timely fashion, then it can't be considered, because you don't have anything. For something to be effective in terms of real estate under the statute of frauds, it has to be in writing that is discoverable. So you can't refer to a writing that no one's seen, notwithstanding the fact that it's referred to in deeds. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Good.
Anything else on our agenda?
Jeff wanted to discuss one more.
No, it's just that in the context of, we've received a couple different requests to investigate potential rights of ways. These are two at the top of the list, of course, but the town of Westerly also asked us to look at Water's Edge as just as part of the package of potential sites that the subcommittee could look at. We've done as staff level, we've gotten some basic information on that, but there hasn't really been a whole lot of discovery on that to date. So that's in the hopper, though, as one of the sites that will eventually come in front of the subcommittee.
Sometimes I think what's easiest to do, there's a natural tendency to take up a right of way, which we've been doing all along. You've been approving rights of way, even as the Weekapog matter has been marching forward with memoranda and things of that nature. Mr. Langseth has been giving us so much stuff. But I think that it's the time is now to take on the difficult ones, even though we have others that are ready to go.
Sorry,
Yes, sir.
I couldn't hear Mr. Lewis when he was talking. Did you say the sand trail and the Water's Edge was in the hopper? Is that what you said?
The town, if I may,
Yeah,
the town of Westerly asked us to look at those two.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
And we've actually started reviewing them, but I gotta say, the Weekapog Spring Street is something that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. The agenda, but it's not an agenda item.
We'll just to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to come before the rights of way subcommittee? Entertain a motion to adjourn the subcommittee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The subcommittee, rights of way subcommittee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Just to let everybody know, the full council meeting will begin in approximately 15 minutes.